If there's one thing more iconic than a video game hero, it's the weapon that they wield. But when you look across the vast selection on offer, it's just all the same thing. It's just guns, guns, guns. It's a bit boring, right? What we want is something a bit more personal, a lot more pointy, and definitely overpowered. Hence why I decided to make this list of weapons that weren't just handguns and more were handheld, sometimes even being your actual fists, in an effort to give love to the stabbers, pokers and slashers of video games, and also to prove that the power fist is truly mightier than the PPK. So let's act like it's Saturday night on the piss and get to clubbing. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 ridiculously overpowered melee weapons. And just for the record, these are overpowered melee weapons, not iconic weapons. So as sad as it is to say, you're not going to see the likes of the Buster Sword on here because, to be honest, after a few hours of playtime, it's pretty piss weak. Number 10, DK Hammer, Smash Bros. Smash Bros has always been a series that involved a great deal of skill and knowledge of character placement in order to get the upper hand. Whether dashing through enemies to launch them off ledges or using the environment to bounce foes into oblivion, it is a game that is much deeper than simply trying to hammer your opponent into submission. Well, unless you actually have the hammer power-up, that is. If you are so lucky as to pick up this tent peg pounder, you will experience a glorious 8 seconds of near unstoppable pounding. We've all been there, right, lads? Which will see you mulch opponents left, right and centre. With its chaotic amount of knockback and hefty percentage damage, this mighty mallet will result in the echoing screams of your opponents as they sail off the sides of the map again and again. And to make matters worse, the cheery music that accompanies this rampage makes it all the more terrifying. Number 9. So many choices. The Dead Rising franchise. Right, so I think I've made my point very, very clear on this subject that I absolutely love the Dead Rising franchise, excluding 4, obviously, because that was a pile of crap. Its ability to mix zombie obliteration and a pressured time limit mechanic really just ticked my boxes, as did the variety of ways in which you could dispatch enemies, which were so numerous that picking just one for this list was entirely impossible. Therefore, I decided to create a sort of list within a list for this section and have my top 3 melee weapons for mulching those looking to munch on you. Number 3 in this list, the paddle saw. Have you ever wanted to combine your joys of cutting through people like wet bread and also flaunt your love of canoeing? Well, your oddly specific request will be met with the paddle saw from Dead Rising 2, a weapon that sees you wielding a double chainsaw staff like your Darth Maul as you wade through the masses. It is certainly not subtle nor elegant, but it's incredibly powerful at taking down enemies, both living and deceased. Number 2. The Electric Crusher. Say you're in the mood not only to flatten enemies, but make an example of them. Enter the Electric Crusher, which is a sledgehammer mixed with a car battery that turns you into a Thor who's covered wars, you know? Turning enemies into paste with one attack and then lighting them up with a blast of electricity which ripples out to pop heads of nearby zombies is an excellent crowd control weapon that exemplifies the tactics of shock and gore. And number 1, the mini chainsaw. And lastly, we end on a weapon that might not seem like much to begin with, but in the first Dead Rising game, you couldn't ask for anything better. These mini chainsaws, once wielded by Adam the Clown, I think he works on the wrestling channel now, will slice through anything in your path. It's incredibly durable and can be stored in your inventory unlike its bigger brother, meaning that you can stock up on so much ripping and a tearing that Doom called to have a word. Number 8. Blast Arm, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. One of the many, many strengths of the Metal Gear franchise has always been its ability to have a laugh at itself. Sure, it's also the series that can bury you in cutscenes and nonsense about nanomachines and secret wars, but at its heart, it is more than happy to dole out the silly, over-the-top action that we all crave. And as if proving to be the culmination of super spy tech, outlandish design, and an idea that seems to have come out of the realms of madness, the Blast Arm is one hell of a toy to be playing with. You know why? Because it's a rocket arm that can deliver a fusion-powered falcon punch to any of your foes, and just reading that sentence aloud makes me so incredibly happy. A rocket fist. How could you go wrong? Well, I mean, you could dampen the moment by stating that technically it's not a melee weapon as it is fired, but come on, when else am I going to be talking about a literal robotic arm that I can burst a man's skull with like a grape at 100 paces? I thought so. Number 7. The Chainsword, Warhammer Space Marine. If I ever needed justification as to why the chainsword from the Warhammer universe is on this list, then I need only read its official description. It promises pain before death. Honestly, this might be one of the most simple designs, being literally a chainsaw and a sword combined, but its results cannot be argued with. Now, I absolutely adore Warhammer in all of its forms. I even have a board game channel called Live and Let's Dice. You should definitely go and subscribe. Do it now. So when I was plonked into the massive power armor shoes of Captain Titus, I was squealing like an innocent man under the torture of the Inquisitors. The weight of this weapon is realized perfectly, and the absolutely brutal ways that you can fell orcs and chaos foes alike is a gruesome spectacle to behold. I often found times where I was foregoing the hellfire shells and explosive rounds of my trusty bolt gun in favor of this Space Marine slashing weapon, and the best thing about orcs is that there is always more to kill, and in the name of the God Emperor, I shall kill. But seriously though, Ultramarines suck. Go Emperor's children. Number 6. HUANG GAI'S boat. Dynasty Warriors 8. Have you ever looked across the weapons arsenal of the collective video game universe and thought to yourself, yeah, this is nice and all, but I'm looking for something a bit more boaty? Well, fret not, my friends, as HUANG GAI from the Dynasty Warriors, and I will always call it that, not Dynasty Warriors, don't tell me I'm wrong, series has got you covered. In a franchise where weird weapons are order of the day, HUANG GAI sails over the other bottom feeders with a weapon that is both practical and at the same time completely impractical. And by this, I mean that his entire gimmick is naval combat, so a weapon that doubles as a transport is actually brilliant, but also, it's a bloody boat. Luckily for him and the player then that this is an absolute beast of a weapon. All of his moves focus around momentum, which in a game that is covered with enemy fodder is incredibly useful. Plus his chain combos allow you to surf around at speed, knocking enemies out of the picture. It's true you could say that nearly every final weapon of the Dynasty Warriors series is overpowered, but few allow you to knock 7 bells out of enemy generals while screaming with laughter because you are crushing them with a glorified canoe. Number 5. The Wrench, BIOSHOCK. The humble wrench might not look like much when you first get your soggy mitts on it in the opening moments of the outstanding BIOSHOCK, but what you hold here is more deadly than a Big Daddy, more terrifying than a spider slicer, and more weighty than the emotional narrative that you're about to embark on. In short, this wrench kicks ass. Well, it does when you upgrade it, that is. With the right tonics and research upgrades, you can dole out a near 900% extra damage with this lovely bit of metal, making it a weapon that challenges most firearms for damage output. Things like the old 1-2 punch of electro bolt and then a tasty whack with the wrench will floor the majority of splicers, and each comes with that sickening yet oddly satisfying wet squelch as you brain the twisted inhabitants of Rapture into jam. It is not an elegant weapon, nor is it particularly impressive to look at, but with Wrench Lurker, Wrench Jockey and Machine Buster, you turn this humble DIY instrument into one that spells D-I-E. Number 4. The Dagger of Time, Prince of Persia. Proving once more that appearances can indeed be deceiving comes the Dagger of Time from the Prince of Persia series, as looking at this with just a casual glance might make you ask for it at the breakfast table to butter your toast with. However, gooping up this priceless relic with butter might prove to be a huge mistake, as this weapon wielded by the prince not only acts as a good way to poke through foes like they're wet paper, but also has the outstanding ability to turn back time itself. I mean, clues in the name, I guess. The ability to rewind time and undo mistakes surely means that this weapon deserves a mention on this list. After all, if stabbing your enemies doesn't work from one angle, simply rewind time and try it again from another perspective. Even if you don't end up using it as a weapon itself, the ability to manipulate the course of fate truly isn't something that one can overlook. It's lucky then that the dagger absolutely mulches sand creatures which normal weapons seem almost useless against. So while its power in combat is situational, as I'm not sure when the last time that I saw a sand creature was in Gateshead, its power in general is truly impressive. Number 3. Shock Gloves, Batman Arkham Origins. You know you've got an overpowered weapon when the game it appears in gets significantly easier the moment you unlock them, and such was the case when Gotham's Dark Knight lit himself up with the Electrocutioner's shock gloves and let any foolish goons that attacked him ride the goddamn lightning. These gloves are horrendously broken within the game, resulting in each hit with them counting as double damage and triple damage if you hit a critical strike, and also benefiting Batman with the ability to punch through armored defenses, shields, and blocking enemies. freeze. Basically, the moment that you turn these bad boys on, you are coasting on easy mode. Now, true, the gloves ran out of juice quicker than the WWE post-steroid scandal, but being able to even access this type of godlike power pushes Batman to almost parody levels of damage output. It also makes it even more hilarious that Batman would choose not to wear them in later missions. I mean, sure, he states that it's because they could be tracked by villains due to their electromagnetic pulse, but as Aaron Cash points out, it made knocking out thugs a damn sight easier. Number 2, Excalibur 2, Final Fantasy IX. Now, I know that a lot of you are probably expecting something like Cloud's Ultima weapon to be on this list, or another of the overpowered final weapons from the FF cast, but honestly, when it all boils down to it, nothing even comes close to that of Excalibur 2 from Final Fantasy IX. Any weapon that has the gall to say that it can improve on the original mythical sword of legend, Excalibur, has some pretty hefty balls on it, and to be able to back up these claims is truly impressive. Excalibur 2 holds the highest damage output in the game, meaning that even the deadliest of foes will be cleaved in twain. Plus, it teaches incredibly powerful skills like stock break and clim hazard, meaning that there are very few foes that will be able to defend against your attacks. Getting the sword, though, is a challenge in its own right, as you will need to get to the final dungeon in the game in under 12 hours. That's right, 12 hours to get to the end of the game just to get a sword that makes the rest of the game a cakewalk. Welcome to the weird world of video games, my friend. And number 1, Dragon's Tooth, Deus Ex. When researching this list, I approached resident wise man and all-around good egg Benjamin Richardson and asked his opinion on what should be number 1, to which he responded without a second's pause, the Dragon's Tooth from Deus Ex. And after looking up what this weapon actually does, I can totally see why. Not only does this weapon look effortlessly cool and basically looks like something straight out of Star Wars, but the actual explanation behind the design is somehow even more impressive. The blade is made up of nanites constantly moving around metal rods, which means that it's constantly sharpening and reforging itself, meaning that it will never dull. And in practice, well, it more than lives up to this description, as for every single hit with this blade, the game registers 5 strikes, each of which can be boosted by the player's augments, meaning that you have a weapon that won't just cut foes down to size, but it will finally dice what is left of them before they hit the floor. And there we go, those were 10 ridiculously overpowered melee weapons. I hope that you enjoyed that, my friends, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. I would like to do a commented edition of this further down the line, so I will take any suggestions and then be right back with my smug voice and super smug face. But before I go off and probably go and write another list, such as the churning wheel of my life, I just want to say one thing. I hope that you are well and not being a weapon to yourself and causing yourself unnecessary pain. Something that's been sort of floating around in my mind recently is the concept of mistakes and how a lot of people punish themselves way too much for mistakes they've made in the past. It is okay to have made mistakes in your past. It is okay to be remorseful for them, but you know what? You need to learn to forgive yourself. Because forgiveness is the only way that you can actually move on from this and become a better person. Learn from the mistakes in your past, but don't let them hold you back from being a better person going forward. And if you need help and support from people to make sure that you don't make these mistakes again, or that you can apologize to them and move on together as a stronger unit, then remember, friends, family, professionals in the support industry, there are people out there who truly care about you and want you to do well. So go out there and smash it, you big ledge. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter, and you can check out my board game channel, like I mentioned earlier, Live and Let's Dice. It would be great to see you over there. As always, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.